All right, good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, December 4th, and this is the second meeting of the Kerrville ISD School Health Advisory Council, or SHAC committee for the school year. We're going to call the meeting to order, and all of the members are present and signed in. Everybody say hello. Hello. Yay. Today we have two things on the agenda. We're going to get student input on our wellness policy, which is what Mr. Ainsley, and he is not able to be here today, reported on last time we met, which seems like a long time ago, but it's been gone fast. And then we're going to get some student input on about the wellness policy, which is specifically in this case student input on cafeteria food, what's offered, what questions they might have that we can pass along to our child nutrition department. And I've already kind of explained to them that there are requests that they're going to make food-wise that we legally cannot offer you. One of those is going to be, Cokes or soda. That can't happen. So you can make the request, and we will definitely note it, but we can't offer that. It is a food of minimal nutritional value, as they say, right? Even though we might live on them. It's debatable. And then the second topic we have is bullying prevention education strategy. So we'll start with wellness, then we'll move into bullying prevention. And students, you guys are, we have 6 students here today representing kind of the secondary campus in terms of for our input for student wellness and also input on bullying management and prevention. All right, so first things first, student wellness, students. I kind of briefly said foods of minimal nutritional value are what is out in the cafeteria, which is why you don't have fried food. Just that's probably the number one request that you're going to ask is why can't they just fry the French fries? They can't. They do have to bake them. So what other things in terms of wellness or child nutrition would you like us to pass along to our child nutrition department? Anybody can jump in. You can ask questions too, so like, why can't we have? Jacob, I know you have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have probably had some prepared. But
Can I ask you guys some questions first
sure.
before you decide, so you can come up with some ideas? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 of you. How many of you eat every day in the cafeteria, or at least a handful of times in a week? One of the 6 of you. Okay, great.
Everybody else brings their lunch?
The rest of you bring your lunch? Okay. Okay, my first question will be, why do you bring your lunch? Is it because of options, or is it because your mom makes it and she's like, here's your lunch?
Well, it's more options, and
Okay.
it's, I prefer it more than the cafeteria food.
Okay.
And also, goes with the guy that I'm going on, higher protein.
Okay.
That's like the main reason
Okay.
why I wanted it.
Agree, higher protein from home. Okay.
It's easier to track calories with store-bought food that I bring.
So you guys are really actually care about what you put in your body.
That's so unusual.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're so proud. Let me ask a question about portion size. Is portion size an issue? Only having a child that attends here, and he'll say, I have to buy a lot at the cafeteria in order to get full. And I can see that on his little Skyward roster or whatever. But, is it a portion size thing too? Like, typically you probably don't eat, if you eat pizza, 1 piece, I would guess.
right. I think, because I'll eat all of my lunch, and I'll eat the breakfast too, and it's enough to be sustenance of some
Right.
kind, but it's not filling me up in any way.
I got you.
Okay. So then if you want more protein, what are some options that you can think of then? That'll spur you into what are some options that you can suggest for the child nutrition?
More meats like beef, chicken, and fish.
Okay.
Yeah, good source of it.
Chicken breast, is that what I heard?
As opposed to the chicken sandwiches.
Well, so as far as the chicken sandwiches go, they switch them up, and I think that's something that, which actually there's a question, is why do they do that? Why do they switch up? They switch out a lot of things. where it'll be like, I mean, cause I get the spicy chicken sandwich, that's what I just had, right? But it'll either be the patty, or it'll be the actual, like it'll be actual like chicken, and it's like different size, completely different. And that one is much better than.
Okay,
the
so maybe a
salad
supply
A
question.
supply chain management question.
Okay, we will ask that question for sure. And anybody can have input, obviously, into the wellness and cafeteria, so.
I guess I was gonna ask, do you prefer the one that's the actual chicken versus the patty?
Okay, so for those who count calories, is there any kind of nutritional analysis where it tells you how many calories are online? Because they have to search for it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but,
Yeah, it's just easier to look at the nutrition label on the back of, like food that I buy from the store than it is to go and count up each individual item that I get. Because as far as I'm aware, it's not posted anywhere physically in school that I can see.
no, the cafeteria menu is posted online, and then you can see the nutritional value of that.
If that was posted, would that change that you would eat in the cafeteria?
Yeah, it would probably be a big factor
Okay.
because it would make it a lot easier to see like, oh, I'm getting this many calories from this meal in this line because we have different lines.
Mhm.
So, you know, when I do eat cafeteria food, I usually get the same thing. So that would make things a lot easier.
Okay.
I'm trying to picture like when you go into, well, now if you go into a fast food restaurant where it will tell you how many calories are next to it. Because that came out of, I would say fairly recent legislation, but I'm old, so I think in the last 5 years or so, where that used to not be the case, where you didn't have calories right next to reminding you how much your breakfast sandwich from McDonald's was gonna be, right? But something similar to that, yeah.
I think,
The macros.
yeah, I'm already like eating that, so I mean, it's not gonna make it change, but I would appreciate being able to
Okay.
visualize that kind of the nutritional information.
You mentioned more proteins. I'm curious. I know they can't fry the foods, but are the proteins that are offered, are they breaded?
Yes.
So would that make it a better option to have like chicken that was not breaded? Because then that's more protein, less carbs. Is that something that would, like, if you're looking for more protein, are you more likely to eat chicken if it's breaded or unbreaded?
Well,
Does that make a difference?
It's kind of more like a personal preference. I
Mhm.
prefer it to be like plain, if it's grilled or seasoned.
Grilled, okay.
Over breaded.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Karina, you have any other
What
questions?
else is in your home lunches or your lunches from home that you're not able to get from the cafeteria?
It's like home spices and like home cooked meals. It's a lot better flavor.
Anything like salt and pepper,
Yeah.
things that are absent when you're,
Yeah, I know kids that bring their own seasonings, so they'll bring their own like thing of salt, pepper, and whatever like seasoning they want to put on their food.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I think like maybe more, I don't know what, like the regulations specifically, like, but things with more fiber,
Okay.
like vegetables or, I know some yogurts have fiber, but like I said, I don't know the regulations on that, like if it's heavily regulated, so.
And when you say more vegetables, they do give an option for vegetables. Is it not your preference, or do you not see vegetables the way you like them prepared? What do you mean by more vegetables?
I think like maybe, well, I haven't seen like all the vegetables they have, but
Okay.
I've seen like green beans and stuff,
Mhm.
but I'd like more like diverse
Okay.
vegetables.
Diverse, yeah.
Like maybe some sweet potato or something like that.
I think the vegetable thing comes back to seasoning as well, right? So if you get vegetables here, they are not seasoned with salt and pepper.
Is there, I mean, I've never been in the Tybee cafeteria, but is there like a salad bar or a sandwich bar option that kids have, or is it just the hot food line?
There's several different options. I'm pretty sure I think I only really ever get, so in the mornings, as far as breakfast goes, there's only one line. And you go through and there'll be different things each day. It's usually muffins, which are a constant, and then cereal. And then obviously they'll have the milk, and then they'll have some stuff that you can buy, that goes over, I think, like the $1.50 that the breakfast is. And then as far as lunch goes, I think it might be 4 lines.
Okay.
And all of them have completely different stuff. And so, some things will be constant for certain lines, and I only go through one line for lunch, so I've never been through the other ones. I'm not too sure, but I think there might maybe be salads.
Salads and
I know
wraps.
And wraps,
I know
yeah.
pizza.
And then you have pizza line and
Okay.
a
And then,
chicken sandwich and a hamburger,
Exactly.
and then you have a hot meal line with
Okay.
your traditional tray. Yeah.
so they have, yeah, they have several
Choices.
options.
Okay,
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other questions, comments about child nutrition that we can pass along? And our intent is to, to share these with Mr. Anglesey and then just say, we'll bring that feedback back to you. We'll share it with the SHAC too, but bring it back to you so you kind of have an understanding of what, if any, options that there could be added or thought about that still fit in that very narrow box that child nutrition has to fit in, but we'll definitely share the information. Anyone else on wellness policy?
Can you give us some things that you enjoy? Things that, hey, they're serving this today. You said the chicken sandwich. Is it the breaded chicken? So the spicy chicken sandwich, French fries, whatever that comes with, which is 95 carbs, just FYI, everybody. But you got the whole, that's what you eat every day, that's what you choose, so spicy chicken sandwich. Is there anything else that you go back for every time and you're like, oh yeah, I totally wanna have that?
I think pretty much I get the same thing every day.
Okay.
So, I mean,
You said that sometimes you do eat in the cafeteria, do you always get the same, you said
Yeah.
when you do get the same thing, what do you get?
It's chicken sandwich.
Is it the same spicy chicken sandwich?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I don't really have like a thing. Like some days it'll be spicy, some days it'll be regular.
Okay.
It doesn't there's no one set.
There are some days that are super popular in like the hot food line. Do you guys know what those are? You can always tell by the lines,
yeah,
right?
I'll see because I'll look right next to it because you have like the burger line.
Mhm.
You can I can see into it, and I'm pretty like content with my chicken sandwich. I'll see people, they'll go crazy for certain things. I'll be like talking about it. I'm not too sure. I think there was something I think it was right before we got out of break, which I think was really just the Thanksgiving
Probably.
thing. But they were definitely excited about that. I don't remember what it was, but
I think usually what people like really get in one line for, it's like a mashed potatoes with like little breaded chicken things and then gravy.
The Mexican bowls are not a big hit anymore.
I know the nacho line, nacho days. the
Our
nacho
big days.
Okay.
Yeah. And they still do like Chinese food, Asian food
Yeah,
days
that's another one.
that are more popular.
Are there proteins offered at breakfast? So hard-boiled eggs.
no.
Eggs,
There are.
sausage.
It has to be well-rounded. I think it's more scrambled than they do hard-boiled, but yeah.
There's not always, so for example, I think this morning they do like, I think it's like 2 pancakes with like a sausage like patty in between. I got the muffin, but sometimes they'll be like good proteins, but other days it'll just be like they'll have like either the frugal things or whatever, and then it might be the muffins and then the cereals and let's say waffles or something, and that pretty much be it. So it's not every day, but I would say regularly there is on certain days.
A protein, either meat or eggs is offered.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Have any of you had the eggs?
Not in a while.
I'm just curious if they're like powdered or like.
Yeah, I don't know, I know what we get at camp, and I know that everybody who works in our dining hall is from KISD. I know what they like to cook, and it is gonna, yeah, I can't guarantee, it's gonna be real eggs in a bag that is easy to scramble, or it's gonna be the cheese, or it's gonna be the egg, like, comes like an egg McMuffin patty, right?
Right.
And those, or they say they're fried, but they're not fried, they're baked and they're pre-cooked.
Yeah.
So,
I would imagine the bags are, like she said, in a bag. I have experience working in food service, so I know like some of the like mass production, like eggs and stuff. You get them in like there's like a big package box, and then there's like a bag, and all you do is you just have to like heat it up somehow.
yeah.
It's not like pallets of fresh eggs.
No.
Yeah.
There is no cracking of eggs. in that I can
And there's
guarantee you.
no, yeah, there's no way to feed this
Yeah.
many
Oh, yeah.
kids
Yeah.
having to crack an egg.
Yeah.
No, you're like, hold
That's
on.
cheese.
Yeah.
Would you-
Well, and if you can imagine how expensive eggs are currently,
Right.
that would be hard.
Sure, they're real eggs though. They're just in a package.
Yeah, exactly.
What else? Anything else on child nutrition, wellness? All silent? Everybody's good?
I have a question. So
Sure.
I know you're saying they don't offer sodas, so what are the drink options in them?
So the standard milk and chocolate milk, and then they'll have certain juices and stuff, and then there's also the SHAC, which I'm not too familiar with, but I know that they'll have like Gatorades there sometimes. I think it's like 0 sugar Gatorades, and then they'll have the only carbonated drink they have is I think it's an Izzy.
Yeah, middle school has Izzy's.
Something like that, yeah. It was
Like
Izzy.
Sparkling water.
Sparkling water.
It's like a sparkling water, but it has some flavor.
Juice.
No. But then they'll also have, so they'll have juices like apple juice, and which also the juices would kind of rotate to sometimes with different things kind of being in. And then they'll have like nakeds, the naked drinks, and certain flavors of that. So,
If you were to get one of those naked juices though, that's not part of your, like, food service, like, you'd have to, it's extra, right?
It's a la
and
carte.
And it's
Yeah.
usually.
It's a la carte, that's
yeah,
what you would call it.
I used to
yes.
get, which I haven't looked in a while, but I used to get one every morning. I would get like the green ones,
Mhm.
and they're probably, I mean, they're more expensive than the breakfast itself, so it's probably
Yeah.
like doubling that. Which I mean makes sense because it's an expensive drink in and of itself. So yeah, you have to pay probably like a little over maybe $2, maybe
Yeah.
$3 for those.
All right, we're all good. All right, we're going to transition into bullying prevention and education strategies. So there's 2 papers. One of them is labeled the minimum standards for bullying prevention from the TEA. So I'm just going to have you pass them around. I'm going to send this one this way. And the other one is a group of questions that Ms. Weiser and team put together in preparation for.
I blew them up so they're a little easier to
Oh,
read.
perfect.
Because my eyes were struggling.
Okay.
So,
Ms.
if your
Weiser
eyes
has the
struggle-
blown up copy because my copies are tiny. So these are questions that, well, I'm going to let everybody get one and then we'll kind of go through. When you get the TEA handout, what you're looking at is the strategies for that are required by school districts for minimum standards. You can see on that date that this is fairly new in terms of a January 2023 putting some of these in place. And some of that, as they frequently, did it come that way? Sorry. As they frequently update expectations for school districts based on things that happen, even outside of the school district. Everybody get one?
Yes.
You should have the TEA handout and the questions. And so we're going to quickly first look at the minimum standards for bullying prevention. And so it will, and students, again, this is in part for you to give some input, but there are, 5 standards that we have to meet in terms of, well, really there's 7, but we'll talk about the 2 on the back. standards about what school districts are required to do for bullying education and prevention. So if you look at one, it's the instruction into content designed to reduce bullying for students, and then it separates that into primary and secondary. Those requirements, and Ms. Weiser could speak to that at length, but those requirements are met through campus character education, counseling education that is provided both at secondary and primary. And you can see the difference. What they're delineating there is what's appropriate for a secondary student and what's appropriate for a primary student, and how that instruction happens. And so that happens on all of KISD campuses from TCDC all the way up. And so what we're focusing on is that highlighted portion in the middle, number 2, is how positive school culture and building healthy relationships between students and staff will be measured. And so sending out includes relevant questioning about bullying, cyberbullying, age-appropriate survey. And so that's, again, K through 12 is where this will go. And so when we look at these questions, we have to be thinking about, is there 2 different surveys? Yes, likely. We're going to have one that's more K5 driven. And I say maybe K5, but maybe K4, because based on some, trends with 5th graders at this point, really the introduction of cell phones at an earlier age, we have a different a set of questions that we probably need to start at 5, transitioning up to 6 through 12. And then we will develop that survey. You'll have the input on that. And then that survey will go out. Our goal is in January to push out to our campuses and then have the information, and then sit down with campus and district leaders about what do we do now once we have this information. What trends are we seeing, and what can we do to respond to those? So that's really what we're focusing on, is that highlighted portion. We'll quickly look at question 3, which is a committee with secondary level students, which is why our students are in here today. And this can be part of an already established committee. So we're using our SHAC committee to look at and walk through the data that we receive from, and we will, in our next SHAC meeting, hopefully timing wise, we'll look at the data that's collected about from the survey. And then number 4, the policy for reporting bullying and cyberbullying incidents. Ongoing, P3 is our anonymous reporting system that we're required to have, but every campus obviously has an intake for bullying reporting, so that's reporting it to a teacher. All of the staff members receive training on that, what to do when a student reports bullying, where does that go, who does it go to next, and there's a procedure, and there's lots of paperwork and documentation to follow that through. But the anonymous requirement is P3. And then we have number 5, which is intervention for both students who engage in bullying and students who are targeted. And that is coming out of our Safe and Supportive Schools counseling departments. Number 6 is the checklist to assess an incident of bullying. That checklist comes from Texas Safe Schools Center. It's one that all of your APs and principals are trained to use. And we do have a checklist that we can go through to help us make a determination between what is bullying and what is sometimes just really bad behavior. And so there is a checklist that is in place for that part of our policy. And then you're taking the policy in subsection 4, which is the rubric and checklist, and then what actions comply with Chapter 37, which is the discipline code chapter that governs all of Texas schools, what happens with Chapter 37 discipline, and then it's in accordance and fair with policy. And so what we're, again, focusing on is that number 2 piece, which is developing that age-appropriate survey. So if you'll take it, the questions that Ms. Weiser provided you that are out there, clearly much bigger than mine. That is so helpful. There are several questions on here, and if you look at the comment suggestion key, so hopefully everybody has a pen or a pencil. If not, there's some boxes with them in there. When we started this, Ms. Weiser and team, we had well over 100 questions. We had to reduce some of that down because obviously we don't want this to take a tremendous amount of time for our kids to take, also making it age appropriate, right? Kindergartner's not going to sit down and take an 80 question survey. I'm not sure my high schoolers would enjoy taking an 80 question survey. But when you look at that comment suggestion key, you can see the ones that say include, like this is a good question. I really think this needs to be asked. If you're on the fence about it, if it's something that you think could be excluded, it's an X. If you see a question 2 or more times, so you understand survey and the statistics behind that, you need to ask a question a couple of times in a different way just to kind of validate we're getting the same or similar responses. But if you see one that's like, okay, we've beat that into the ground, we've asked it 3 or 4 times, we probably don't need that, then just go ahead and put that D, duplicate question. If you have a question that you're just like, I'm not really even sure what this is asking or trying to measure, then you can put that question mark. And one of the things that you'll see is under Ms. Weiser's guidance and direction, bullying is a word that is used a lot, right? It's used a lot in terms of we identify a lot of behavior by saying this is bullying or I'm being bullied and this situation is bullying. When we run it through, it doesn't always pan out to be that. And so what we try to do is some of the questions was not overuse the word bullying. So we tried to get to what is the behavior that's happening, and that'll help us kind of figure out what behaviors are we seeing and what do we need to do in response to that. So if you think about some of the questions about if I am, if you go into like page 2, you'll see questions that have I've been called mean names related to how I dress or look. Does that make sense? And so we're trying to really get into what is the behavior that we see, we could end up with saying that this doesn't match our, reporting data or vice versa. And so we really want to get to the heart of what is that behavior. And maybe those are where we separate between when we're asking K5 or K4 and what we're asking secondary. So those are things to think about. So what we want to do is have a chance. Does anybody have any questions on anything that jumps out at them right now with these questions?
I do have a question. Our goal and mission for this whole process is we're going to send a survey to our students, and the information we get with that survey is to tell us that there is bullying at school.
What trends are we seeing? So if you go deep into the questions, you'll see what kind, like what trends we might be seeing in terms of student behavior. Where are these things happening? Like, do we have an issue in passing periods, right? If you think secondary, because that's the least supervision, right? So you have people in the hall, but they're not going to catch and see everything. So do we have a problem with that? Is there some underlying current in the campus that we don't know about? And because of the way the survey will be developed, we'll be able to separate that out by campus, right? So by campus, what's happening, age appropriate, is there a recess issue that maybe we're not aware of? And nothing in these surveys is going to tell us who the kid is. So when we push this out and even making parents informed about that, you need to understand this does not constitute I've reported it to somebody, right? Like I'm having this problem, I'm being bullied, and now I've used this survey to report it because we're not going to have names connected to this. We can't. We don't want to collect student names in specific situations. We're going to do everything we can to communicate as we do that if you're seeing concerning behavior, you gotta get to a teacher or an administrator so that we can walk through the steps of correcting and addressing it. So this is not the reporting tool. It's literally to be, what is your experience on campus? What have you seen or been exposed to? And help us kind of target hotspots, campus trends, so that we can better develop counseling, right? So proactive education in terms of, here are some things that we're seeing, because I can speak to a secondary campus, but when you see something come across your desk, you're like, I had no idea that could even happen, and now I'm going to go educate as many people as I possibly can about the warning signs for such and such, so we don't get to that situation again. And so I think that's what this is. That is what this is designed to do, is to give us an idea of what are our kids experiencing on a day in and day out on their campuses. Where is it happening? And then let's talk about, when we come back together, even with the data, to say, well, what are the next steps? What should we be doing that we're not already doing to just further make Kerrville ISD a safe place for kids to be?
So it's to make KISD more aware of the issues that are present on campuses
Correct.
that need to be addressed. This is a student's perspective. This is
Mhm.
not going home to the parents.
Nope.
Okay, yeah. And then, and this is just this is the students, okay,
Right.
I'm in.
Student perspective of what is it, and if you look at even on the first page where you see some of the questions is like, I am aware of state and federal laws regarding bullying and harassment. Because what happens when a student engages in that behavior, there are some significant consequences. And so we feel like, we're doing, what we know to do and the best we can to educate students on like, not only should you not be doing this, here are all the consequences of doing that, especially as you age and get older. And so if we get a lot of things that like, no, I don't have any idea, well then that tells us we need to go back and rethink the way that we're trying to educate students on what the requirements are in terms of laws and reporting and that kind of stuff. And so I think it's twofold in the sense of, one, getting information about kids' perspective on what are they seeing, what are they experiencing, and two, what do they know about this so that we can avoid consequences or we can avoid behaviors that we really shouldn't be engaging in anyway, and how do we support them in that. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a recommendation on the number of questions, especially at secondary?
Yeah,
Had conversations?
I mean, I think we want to have a good picture. We don't want to make it so short that it's not
Yeah.
valid data, but we know 80 is too many.
Yeah.
So I think
So-
wherever we come in somewhere under that, I think we'll be able to figure out kind of best next steps.
Not 10 and not 80.
Correct.
So in between that.
Not 10 and not
Also,
80.
Will this be administered paper pencil to students, or is this online?
We're going to do it electronically. Yeah, electronically.
And it will be read to them if they need that option.
Yeah, so we'll have to make some accommodations, especially even if you think about K1 and 2, how we put that out. We're going to get input from the campus principals and the teachers and the campus groups to say what's the best way for us to get the most accurate information, because that is hard, right? Yes, sir.
After you get this data, will there be like some sort of assembly or presentation in like classrooms?
For the students to
anti-bullying?
have the data? For the students to have the data or for?
Or for like just anti-bullying, like a presentation or anything like that?
So if you think about, and I can only speak to in the past, if you think about like when we start school years with, here are all the guidelines, here's how we treat people, here's how we report things, here are all the behaviors that you can't engage in, that is part of that. But you're thinking more something specifically, yeah, I mean, I think the data is going to give us a good start on what is it that you need to hear. And you guys now, whether you like it or not, you're in it, right? So you get to help us decide, like, what are the things that absolutely high school students, maybe secondary students need to hear to say, if I'm engaging in this, I need to stop. If I'm a victim of this, I know what to do to report it. And I mean, if you think about in September, at the end of September every year, the last week of September, the district engages in See Something, Say Something campaign, right? That is P3 anonymous reporting. If you see something that isn't right, you should report it when it comes to student school safety. This is an element of that, right? So it's not enough to say, I'm not bullying, but the next step of that is, I've seen it, now what do I do with the information that I have? Because that's where you're going to empower students. Is like, if I see this or I know this is happening, either because I'm online and I see it, I'm in a group message and I see it. Think about all those ways that we know, and I think the data will support, we know that those things are happening. What do we need to do? What do we need to put in front of students to help them make different choices and to prepare themselves on what to do next if that happens to them? But yes, yeah, I mean, I think all of that is on the table. So, great question. What other questions? Yes, sir.
As far as the data goes, again, is that something that's going to be published or like gone over with the students? It's like statistically, like how many people are saying yes or no to this question? Because that's something that you all even do with one, and two, like what are your thoughts on that? Because I think that can be something that can be beneficial for the kids if they're saying, maybe 20-30% are responding yes to I'm being bullied. So they're saying, 1 in 5 kids in the kids in my 20, classroom are being bullied. I think that could be really, really important.
Absolutely. It is not something that we've discussed in terms of the next steps to share out the data, but it's definitely something that we can discuss. And because we're collecting it anonymously, right, and the sample set is going to be large. If you think about the district is 4,600 students roughly. If we all got them to take it, which means they would all need to come to school every single day that we're giving it, right? We would have plans for that, but it wouldn't be so small of a sample set that we would be afraid that sharing it would, create some conflict. So no, I think that's something that we can definitely do. Is it age appropriate for all of them? I don't know. But at the secondary, for a secondary perspective to say, my goodness, I'm sitting in a room and 20 of the people here have reported being bullied this year, it gives me pause to think about, how am I treating the people around me? If that's not me, then how am I treating the people around me? That might be a really good eye-opening piece. So I appreciate that comment.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you asked that, because my next question to you guys then is, if we did share this information, how does this change you guys and your perspective of it, and what do you want to know to better make your campus safer or less less bullying on your campus? What do you want to know? Number one, that it's happening.
I think the number, like statistically, like the percentage of people, one in this many report being bullied. I think that'd be very helpful.
How does that change your behavior?
Because if it's like right now, I can only speak for myself and like a few people I know, but I don't think in like 2 years I've seen a genuine case of like repeated, consistent bullying.
Okay.
So, and like a lot of these questions assume that I have. Like number one, it says when I see acts of bullying or harassment, I report it. I don't think I have seen one in like almost the entire time I've been in high school. So, and like if it's bigger than I think it is, say it is like 30% of people, then obviously that's like a lot more people than I think are being bullied. So,
Do you think, because a lot of these questions, if you look at this, like 8 through 45, right? Where it's saying specifically, like, I've been called names about my race or color, and maybe, like, if you're seeing statistics, like, oh man, like 20% of kids said yes, or like 20% of kids said they've been threatened or forced, like, does that change your perspective versus just random bullying? Like, someone's being called like a racial term, or they're being made fun of because of specific things, does that like make you feel like maybe you might have seen bullying that?
Yeah, I think it would, but also I think like especially with like secondary students, a lot of our like friendships even are very like sarcastic and insulting in nature.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of like friendly, like it doesn't sound friendly
There's
when
a
you put it on
question
paper,
about that
but
too.
when you take into account like tone and context, it's a lot of friendly banter between kids.
So, like 25, most teasing I see is done in fun, not to hurt people.
Yeah.
So, like, you would probably mind.
I would agree very much with that. It's like, I don't think many people have the intention of going around just like, saying, I want to make these people
But
feel bad.
if you knew on a survey and they presented the data, like, here at Tybee, this percent of kids is answering it this way or this way,
Yes, that
might
would probably,
change.
yeah, I think that might influence a lot of like choices that students make regarding
Okay.
what they say.
So I think the other insight to that is, it is always not intended to harm until it does, right? So from the parent, administrator, teacher part, and as the human adult, right, is like you have a level and then it's not funny anymore.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes what we have to navigate with older students is like, yeah, I thought it was funny, but it's not funny to them. And sometimes not picking up on those cues and stuff. And so that's good insight to know.
That's exactly where my question was going. Do you think KISD or Tybee High School, since you're at Tybee High School, the truth of the matter is it started in elementary school. If you guys were in KISD even in elementary school, do you think they do a good job of teaching and controlling bullying when it does happen? Or do you think that the students of KISD just are good character?
I think that it's a combination of the two.
Okay.
I think, because I can say that also personally, it's like, kind of piggybacking off of what he said, most of the people almost everybody, they're not going around with some ill intent, with the things they're saying and doing. They will carelessly make decisions that obviously can affect people, and so that's where kind of, harassment goes into the unintentional part of it, where it can still be considered that. So great character as far as the kids in this community go, but also I think that as far as the administration and kind of educating kids on what to do, I think everybody knows, okay, if I see something, let me go to P3, or I can go to, I think they know there's no problem on kids knowing where to go and what to do if they do see something. It's all pretty straightforward.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think the kind of like the standard thing we have in our heads of bullying does not apply to secondary people, because when I think of bullying, I think of there's this kid going around picking on the people that don't have many friends and all that. I think that doesn't really apply to secondary students, because we all have our own little groups, and I don't think there's if one group doesn't want to interact with it another, there's not a big crossover. So I don't think the standard perception of bullying that at least I have in my head is actually happening.
Okay, guys, at this time, what we're going to do is just spend some time going over the questions. If for some reason we still have, 15 minutes or so, so we're going to kind of close the meeting. And if you're able to stick around and get it done, great. If you feel like you need to take them with you, okay, as long as I can get them back before the break so we can start building and working on something to push out in January. But otherwise, we have time to do that. Are there any other final comments, Ms. Manchester? Is anything else we need to talk about? We are coming up on the next meeting, February the 12th. And so by then, it is our intent to both have the survey pushed out and completed, and then have the data back to suggest, here's what we have, here's what we found out, and then really have a good conversation about next steps. Is there anything else that you think we need to discuss in the February 12 meeting that we can put on our agenda?
Yes, well, have we reviewed what some of the fentanyl curriculum and the things that we worked through last semester, has that been decided on, and have we started that in our schools, and what's the feedback in regards to that if we have? So I do think I think we should talk about that at the February meeting,
okay,
because that's something that we worked very diligently on last, and I wasn't sure if we ever came back to it. And then
it was pushed out in May of last year. So the
Perfect.
curriculum
So-
was used in May and will be used again in this school year.
Oh, so I do, just some feedback on that.
Did you get that? Because I showed her all the stuff I was going through. I'm like, did your science teacher teach you this? I'm like, I don't think so. I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, so
Sixth
just
grader.
to follow up on that, I think, and then there was something that we discussed, I'm so sorry, I left my folder at the office. Something else that we discussed, I'll look at it and I'll send it.
Sure.
I'll send it to Cheryl
Perfect.
if I think that we need to come back to it, but it was something I was like, oh, I wonder what happened with that. So I'll see what just so we're doing our due diligence.
Okay.
But also giving positive feedback, and the fact that we've been on this, some of us have been on School Health Advisory Council for a very long time. They want to know what we're doing is making a difference.
It's making a difference,
Okay.
absolutely. Any questions about bullying prevention strategies? Otherwise, I'm just going to call the meeting to adjourn, and then you'll have some time to look at the questions and kind of discuss, and then leave them with me if you can. If not, if you can just get them back to me before the end of the holidays, which that last date is the 20th. Sooner than that would be great, because then we can work on it before the break, getting it finalized, getting input from principals, etc. All right, I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.